French feels terrifying at first, but there's a little plot twist. If you're an English speaker, French is actually helping you more than you realize. Last week I made a video explaining why French is harder than you think. This week is about why French is easier than you think. Number one, you already know more French than you think. There's thousands of English words that come directly from French. For example, the word important, culture, possible, any word that ends with "tion," like information, for example. The word different. All these words are said in French as well. But the only difference is obviously the accent. Number two, French pronunciation is consistent. So once you know more or less how the words are pronounced, if you know the pattern and everything, then it's kind of easy. Once you read the text, it becomes easier to actually pronounce these words. Now, if you don't know the pronunciation, then yes, obviously it could be very difficult. You look at a word, it ends with A-I-E-N-T, and you try to pronounce all those letters until you realize that you're not supposed to pronounce any of them. But once you learn the pattern, then it does become much easier and very consistent. So this means fewer surprises, better guessing, which is important when it comes to talking a new language, and faster improvement. But like I said, the beginning feels like chaos, but the pronunciation makes it become a bit more fluid with consistency, which means there's less surprises. Number three, you don't need perfect grammar to be understood. French people drop words, shorten phrases, and all in all, ignore textbook rules. So you don't need perfect French to be understood or to even understand the language. Communication comes from patterns and meanings rather than these textbook rules. Number four, French rewards listening early. Once you focus on listening rather than translating, things change fast. With immersion through, let's say, TV shows, films, YouTube videos, podcasts, music, your brain starts to develop and starts to understand these little things. For example, common phrases, verb patterns, and sentence rhythm. This is where the language really starts to click. Number five, the hardest part is the beginning. I remember at the very beginning, French just sounded impossible. I couldn't distinguish the words. So when someone was talking, it just sounded like it was all jumbled up in one, if that makes sense. But once you get past the basic pronunciation, common verbs, and the everyday structures, you will come to see a lot of progress. But the problem is, a lot of learners quit before this happens. I guess they quit because they think it will always be like that. But trust me, after that stage, it becomes much easier. So all in all, in my personal opinion, I don't think French is easy. I know a lot of people do say French is easy and they do think French is easy. But for me, I don't think that's the case. But having said that, it's not impossible. I do think that the language looks harder than it actually is. And in a sense, I would say it punishes perfection. If you see someone that's speaking from like the textbook, for example, it just sounds off. The language, French, also rewards patience and resilience. Once you stick with it, the language becomes even more fun to learn. Things start to click, it starts to feel a little easier, a lot of things start to make sense. Let me know if you agree or disagree with anything that I said today. Like, comment, subscribe, and until next time.